First, the person says, discussions like this one are to promote open and honest dialogue are awesome. But after this, a lot of us will return to our respective corners. How do we elevate this level of understanding and friendship here at Ohio State on a national stage? And in relation to this, the recent campaign that has caused a huge, in England and here, the atheists on the school bus and all that. And actually, another person talks about how they were hanging flyers, and all the atheists, there were 2 flyers, one had Christian on it and atheist on it, and some of the atheist ones, unfortunately, got torn down. So how do we elevate this conversation at Ohio State and then maybe on a national level?
Well, I can definitely take a stab at that one. I think the best place for it to happen is on a college campus because people want to have these discussions. The fact that so many people are here speaks to that. How do you keep it going? You do more events with the people who don't think the way you do, and you have dialogues like this. And then after you're done with the dialogue like this, then you go out and you talk more with those people that disagree with you, and you just be more open to those types of conversations. I work with the Secular Student Alliance, and one of the groups that is affiliated with us, we gave them an award. They did one of the best service projects I've ever heard of. Last spring break, they had this week off. They wanted to do something good, but they didn't really have the money on their own to travel somewhere. So they kind of hooked up with Campus Crusade for Christ, who was going down to New Orleans, and said, "Can we join you? Because we want to help, the people down there." And they ended up driving down there together, more or less, and a very long trip and lots of fun conversations. But that idea that, look, it's tough when you're out of college and you're in your own little world to meet people and talk to people who think differently from you, but college more so than anywhere else, this is the place. Like, when you're doing any sort of event, even if you're like Students for Free Thought at OSU, you're gonna have a lot of meetings where you discuss things going on in the atheist world, but invite Christians to your meetings to kind of, not to argue with them, but to provide a counterpoint. What are other people thinking about this? And I would hope that a lot of the Christian groups on campus try to reach out to Hindus and Muslims and atheists, come challenge us, because we believe what we believe, but that faith only gets stronger if you're challenged about them and you have to explain yourself. And I think any group on campus can do that. It doesn't matter really what they're doing. So,
I think especially when we talk about postmodernism and all that bailiwick, but there's a sense in which we're so aware of those who we are surrounded by that I feel like in this generation that tolerance is not the right word, because tolerance means some sort of tension which that they're just sort of tolerating. I don't want to be tolerated, I don't want to be tolerated by an atheist, I don't want to be tolerated by a Muslim, but there's a sense of which I think I see in this generation a sense in which we can have friends who are different from us. When 40 years ago, perhaps, I wouldn't be allowed to stay the night over the atheist neighbor house, when that just doesn't happen now. I'm pleased to see that. The difficult thing for the kind of dialogues that we do have is that because we both come from such different presuppositions, it's difficult. That's why I'm glad this isn't a you prove it, I prove it sort of thing, because we come from such different beginning points in which we have the conversation that dialogue is very difficult to have. And dialogue, it's hard for me just to say, well, I see it this way, it's completely different than you. But I find also that that's healthy. It helps me shape how I think. I find it, you need a rough stone in order to sharpen your blade. You need something hard to learn to lean against. So to continue to have these conversations, I find are actually strengthening in faith. And I feel like that there's such a worry that, oh no, if we encounter any questions outside of our tradition or whatever, that will tear down. And I find a good, healthy faith will find that it only builds it up.
I remember when I started a campus group in my own college at the University of Illinois, and one of the most exciting parts about it is every couple weeks we'd have our meetings, we'd have discussions on atheist topics, what life after death, how do you be good without God, things like that. The most interesting thing was we were pretty close to the Moody Bible Institute, pretty conservative religious people there, and there would be 2 students from Moody Bible who would come to almost all of our meetings, and they're kind of devil's advocate, but joining us in on these conversations. And when I asked them, so why do you guys come here? It's great to have you, but why are you here? And they just said, we never get to have these types of conversations on our campus because you just go along with it. You agree. There's never any disagreement there.
After sitting in so many churches for a year, why do you think all the other attendees who went were motivated to be there? Socially, emotionally, mentally, or whatever, what do you think people get out of going?
Well, one, they believe. They want to get that spiritual fix, whether it's on a weekly basis or more. But man, when I go to some of those bigger churches, I mean, they have your whole life taken care of, and in a good way. I mean, you could get the daycare you need over there. You could, if you're stuck in a fix financially, they will help you out. There are people in the church who will help you. It's amazing what they will provide, and I'm jealous that I don't have that in my life. Like this community that will help me even though I don't know who they are. I have friends, but I mean, that's a totally different world there. So, I mean, why are they part of that church? Yeah, I mean, they're religious to that extent, but the church offers so much more than, just Jesus, that you want to be kind of part of that community. And if you're part of it, it's very tough to just say, to let go of that. Because you're not just letting go of God, you're letting go of a whole lot more than that. So, it's not surprising to me why so many people go. And it's another reason atheists have such an uphill climb when we say, we want to convince people, whether it's ads on city buses or otherwise, that look, there's this alternate option there. Because it's going to be tough to convince people on just an intellectual reason or something, because the churches offer so much more than just intellectual ideas or anything like that. They offer this whole emotional, social support network. So,
I go for Jesus, and there is that sense of the fix. But there is also a sense I worry a little bit about the church being so accustomed to the fix that sometimes when we lose the fix, I compare it to the four kinds of love, where there's the erotic love, and then there's the storge love, the love for the stranger, the other, and the friendship love, the philos love, and then there's the agape love, the unconditional love. I see a lot of churches so attracted to the eros love of God that in some sense, like I have erotic moments with my wife, to be sure.
Thanks.
Yeah. I've got 3 kids to prove it. But my whole life is not built on that erotic sense. And I love to find the church that you can leave just as much going, huh, as you could with, woo. Because if you're always looking for the woo, eventually you kind of go, woo. And to find a church that focuses on that unconditional love, the unconditional love I have for my wife, that I can have just as strong a relationship when I'm searching the web and she's playing solitaire as we could, as in the erotic moment or in the conversation. I noticed that in a lot of the in your book, so many of those experiences of the fix and that
And I think you agree with me on this. Like, I don't really get how people could be like super religious on a Sunday morning and then just kind of forget about it on Monday.
I think a lot of Christians don't get that either. I think there's a sense in which for a long time during the modern era we had this because it was such a social norm that it had economic, so like you were saying, economic sociological impacts. That the question was always during the modern era was, what church do you go to? So there was a sense that everybody had to belong to a church, and if you didn't, you couldn't do business with that person. You had far-reaching things. As we move into a post-Christendom society here, the question that I hear our students asking aren't what church do you go to, but do you believe in God? Which is a very different question, and I hope it's a question that the church is starting to address more than just, at least we're not those people, much more, let's talk about who we believe Jesus to be, which is, I think, a reflection of what you meant, like Don Miller and Rob Bell and some of those people that I've read that are much more focused on that.
Not to get too off topic, but one of the most disturbing things I think I saw at one of the churches I went to, they had just sitting by the front door a directory of Christian businesses or Christian-owned businesses in the area. And I get it, like, yeah, you support the community or something. But when I saw that, it's like, what, if I owned a business in the area I'm not good enough to do business with? That's so inclusive, and that doesn't make sense.
Absolutely agree. I wish that never existed. I wish we lived in the world and not confined ourselves to a bubble.